Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I am joined here by my colleague, Jen Simons. You can see her in that video right next to me. Hey, Jen, how's it going?
Great. Good to see you, Ian.
And Jen's here for our office hours segment. And office hours is usually a little bit more of a casual discussion about some of the things that are happening within the current landscape of college admission. And I wanted to start, Jen, with an email that I got from one of my freshmen. Because I think it's a really great email. She's a great kid. She just reached out. Hi, Ian. I love the exclamation point. I was wondering if there's a chance that I could do some community service over summer break before next school year's tight schedule. However, especially given the current circumstances, I don't really know where to start. Do you have any sources of where I could look for some potential opportunities? Thought that was a really nice email. And we've had other conversations about things that are academic, how to keep involved and connected over the course of the summer. But I want to sort of just use that as a springboard for us to discuss a little bit about what this summer could be. So what are the conversations that you're having with your students, and how are you talking to them about how this summer might be different from a typical summer?
Well, I mean, it's going to be different, but I want them to look at this as an opportunity, like everything else. If anything good comes out of this COVID situation and how it's impacted students, one of the things that's affected me the most is reading about how kids are getting more sleep. So that's a really good thing.
Yeah, it's
Um,
great.
the the other thing is that I think, to be honest, expectations have shifted. We don't know exactly what that means, but obviously no one is going to be able to do, no one, no matter where you are in the world, you're not going to be able to do what you would have done, what you could have done, previously. And
Right.
so I want you to think about this as an opportunity to kind of think big, think creatively, and use this, if you will, and I'll also give you some practical suggestions if that's not your cup of tea, but use this as you will, an opportunity to um do something that's connected to, I don't want to say passion because that's an overused word, but a
Yeah.
hobby, something that's always intrigued you.
Yeah.
Have a little fun.
Yeah.
Go back to what the purpose of summer kind of was. And I'm not talking about vacations or, because that's past. And quite frankly, I think we've all had a little too much time with well, speaking for myself, I don't know, with our families, but I, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
A student of mine is very, very interested in beekeeping, and we found a course for her through Penn State University, a non-credit bearing course, how to start a beekeeping, practice or enterprise or whatever word you
That's
would use to
awesome.
describe. Yeah,
I love it.
exactly. The idea that you could, okay, so everybody's into cooking, everybody has sourdough starter, all this
Sure.
stuff. But, the fact that you could take a cooking class online with friends, and then organize something afterwards for your teachers when we come out of hibernation or we come out of, and so don't just like do something, don't just take that cooking class online, but do what I encourage my students to do with all extracurriculars. Dig in a little deeper and say, okay, the first step is taking the cooking class online. The second step is organizing a virtual dinner with my friends. The third step is inviting our teachers. And the fourth step is that, we focus on a particular cuisine and we have it all in French or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
No,
you just want to keep on deepening it and giving it more impact. And so it doesn't have to be something serious. I'll talk about serious things, but it could be something that you truly have always wanted to explore and enjoy.
I mean, that's exactly. I mean, I think I've been telling students we're not looking to perfectly replace the things that have gone away, right? And that's impossible. You can't say, all right, well, I'm going to find a way to do beach volleyball tournaments
Mhm.
at home by myself. And it's not going to work, right? But you can cultivate these other interests. And that step-by-step process, I think, is so interesting and a really great way of putting it that you can always continue to deepen. How can I involve more people? How can I make this have an educational component? What can I do to inform myself? Bringing some of that elements of learning and community into it. we're all really starved for community, I think, at this point. And so having some opportunities to create that, I think, could be really helpful. I also think about the step-by-step process in terms of using 2 summers. So this is true for sophomores and freshmen, but you can almost think about, what would I like to do next summer? Assuming that things are a little bit more normal. Is there an internship? Is there an opportunity that I want to take advantage of? And given that, what would I want to have on my resume in order to be competitive for that internship? Is it a certain set of skills? Is it some reading that I want to do? Is it expertise that I need to develop? Right? So your student who's interested in beekeeping could go and work at a professional beekeeping colony if they've learned all of these components of beekeeping. And so that opens doors later on down the road that maybe they're not expecting at this point.
No, absolutely. Talking about conservation, things like that,
Yeah.
ultimately.
So speaking of community service in particular, I think that this is one of the areas that's challenging, because we think of community service as sort of shoulder to shoulder, hands in the dirt, planting trees, working with people in person. That's very hard to do now. How should students think about things like community service? And I'll sort of put the asterisk here. Of course, community service is not prioritized by most schools above and beyond other kinds of activities. But for those students who are interested in connecting to their community, what can they be doing now?
It's funny that that's how you folks on the West Coast think about community service, hands in the dirt. My hands aren't in the dirt. No, I think about going to hospitals and, teaching and not getting dirty. I don't want to get dirty. So basically,
Come and
this is
visit.
a.
Well, I'll show you
Yeah,
around.
I'm good.
We'll do a slough planting.
Okay.
It'll be great. No, go ahead.
All right, but then you're gonna come here and we're gonna like sit in the library or something. And
That sounds great. I love books.
But so I think this is a fabulous time to do community service. First of all, if you live in the US, there's a presidential election. There are some things going on in terms of, political causes that you might be interested in joining. I have my students go on to Indeed, Chegg, all the regular, search sites and type in virtual high school community service, volunteering, high school volunteers, things like that. Just sort of search for those things. And there are lots of community service opportunities that are online. I will also say though, because this is one of the most commonly asked questions I get asked, do colleges require community service on a resume or in an application? And of course, like you said, the answer is no. The answer is no for most high schools, and the answer is no for colleges and universities. Colleges don't require it. It's obviously a good thing to do, but you don't have to do it. But there are lots of opportunities that you can take that are virtual opportunities to still do community service. You can also do literally community service in your community by contacting the local school district, heads, and they'll be reading their emails over the summer for sure, and say, what can I do? What can I do in my local hospital? How can I reach out? Even asking, parents around most towns, or many towns, I should say, have Facebook groups.
Right.
How can I be of service to you and your children? Start at that grassroots level, and you'll be surprised at how many, or the elderly. I mean, that's been really heartening in our community. We've had people reaching out to, older people, and how can I help? And then how do I take that to the next level? How do I organize something? How do I make it into something lasting? That's how it becomes more of an extracurricular that you can list on your resume, because of course, I'm not going to pretend that that's not relevant. It is.
No, it certainly is. And I think the resume is an important thing to keep in mind. I just sort of slammed resumes in the last segment, but when we keep a list of activities that we have, because that's what colleges are interested in looking at, you should be keeping track of the things that you're participating in and writing down details, and even potentially journaling about some of these things, because your goal later on is to convey to colleges what it was that you were actually doing. What are the things that I spent my time doing during this period? I've also, Jen, I've told some students, like, one of the best ways to think about this is if you're in an interview with a college admission officer in the fall, and they say, what did you do while you were home for 5 months? How did you spend your time? You don't want the answer to that question to be, I played video games. I played a lot of video games, right? You want to have some things that you were actually engaged with, that you connected in community, and that you were focused on. And some of these things can be more independent and solitary, like reading. Maybe there's some form of study that you're engaging in that's for you only. And then some of them can be more community oriented. And I think that that's perfectly fine as well.
Absolutely. Ian, call your favorite call. Yeah, nobody call. Email your favorite teacher
Yeah.
and say, my English teacher, what books, what are you actually, okay, you ready for this? You email your English teacher, what are your favorite books? What are your must read outside of the curriculum books? But also do that with your math teacher and your
Yeah.
science teacher and your principal, and put together a book list for your friends of this is Mrs. Harris's favorite book. This is Mr. Martin's favorite book, and create a book club around that. Interview them. That's something you can do. You can contact professionals in your community and say, how did you get to be in the job that you are in? Can I interview you and put together a web series? I mean, like, the sky's the limit. You can 100% do an online class. That's a great fallback. No problem. And
Sure.
do that. But think about this summer again as an opportunity to really be creative and do something, a little bit out of the box, so to speak.
Yeah, and as a younger student, I think there's even more flexibility in that space. It feels a little bit less urgent, like, oh, I've only got one summer left. I've really got to make this work. I think if you are a freshman, if you're a rising freshman, even if you're a sophomore, like, you don't necessarily have to think about this as a make or break sort of situation. And what you said, Jen, about shifting expectations, I think is really important. I alluded to this in the first segment, but now we have, I think, 2, maybe 3 Ivies that are test optional, which we thought we would never see the day. And I think that they're adjusting to the times. They're adjusting their expectations. And I think we're going to see similar kinds of things in terms of what summers traditionally look like. So take some comfort, I think, in that shift and find what's going to work best for you. Do you have any other sort of thoughts or tips that we can send along to students as they're looking? I would love to plug our blog, blog.getintocollege.com. We've had some great articles on community service, on how to engage in STEM work over the summer. Just a lot of really great tips. So go to our blog. You'll find some really good tips and advice there. That's what I sent my student who has sent me that email. But anything else that you wanted to share, Jen?
I should have had something like, prepared the way you do in
Sign
an
off.
interview that says, but yeah, I don't. I wish everyone good luck.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're turning a corner. And as I've said to all the students, we're all in this together. So, just try to, as I've said before, have fun. Ian, it's always a treat to talk to you. And
Same, Jen.
it's good to see you.
Awesome. Great to see you too. And folks, if you'd like to see more of me, Jen won't be there, but in the next segment, we will be talking a little bit about the PSAT and its relationship to scholarships. So don't go away if you want to be a part of that conversation.